Hey, what's up, yo? This is Noka2 coming at you again with a third comic book haul. It's been a great weekend of football as it's rivalry week in college football. I love this week of football. I'll be honest, I was worried and did not think my alma mater was going to win uh, against their state rival. I thought UVA was finally going to win the Commonwealth Cup back after 15 years, but Virginia Tech was able to pull it out. UVA had been playing some pretty good ball, and we had a number of injuries at key positions and hadn't been playing well, so I did not think they would win. They were the underdog, but they pulled it out. It was a decent game. And then here in Ohio, uh, being here for 25 years, I've become a de facto Buckeye fan. I'm not except when they're playing my alma mater, which, they've played a couple of years. Um, I am not an avid Buckeye fan like some of the locals, but I do root for them when they're playing. And I also did not think they were going to beat Michigan, and nowhere near the way they did. I mean, they spanked Michigan today. And, I think even the Buckeyes will like even more, even if they don't make the playoffs. I think they'll like the fact that they just eliminated Michigan from the playoffs. So I can only imagine the memes that are going to be coming through today on social media. But anyway, great time of year. So as you know, I've got a stack of books I've been trying to rebag in Mylars and fullbacks, and so that I can file them away. So all these books again I've purchased over the last 3 to 4 months, and they've been sitting in my office. So these first books, I got Incredible Hulk 418, the first cameo appearance of Talos the Tame. This book got some heat. I got this book about probably 3 or 4 months ago. It's probably the early part of the summer, and they were $1 a piece. Sometimes a little hard to find in high grade simply because it's a almost all white color cover, very light. This one did have a little color rub on it, which my guess is can be dry cleaned off. But Talos the Tame is supposed to be in the Captain Marvel movie, so this book got heat when that first got announced, and he's in the audience of this wedding between Rick Jones and Marlo, his girlfriend. There's a intergalactic attendance simply because of his previous history as Captain Marvel, and Talos the Tamed is named in the audience in the wedding. And so, that book got some heat, and when it first got announced, this book was going for 10, $15. I saw a couple of sales when it was paired to a second appearance like this, 419, Talos the Tame's full appearance, that it would go for $20 with a copy of each. But it just, it dropped like a rock. These two 419s I got for $1 a piece. This one is probably near mint minus. It's got crisp corners, but the white here is not as crisp as I think it should be. It looks a little off white, and this one had a little bit of color rub on it from a comic that was in front of it because they weren't bagged and boarded when I bought them. Now, if you look online, they're going for like $2 or $3, $5. It's not as hot, nowhere near as hot as it was, and maybe it'll pick up some heat once the movie comes back closer to release date. Got this book here, Aquaman number 19. First appearance of King Nereus. It's supposed to be an Aquaman movie. I really hope that movie is good. I root for all of the superhero movies just because I grew up when there really weren't any good movies, and every time they succeed, the likelihood there's going to be another movie increases with a bigger budget. So, DCU, as we know, they just haven't really made the caliber of movie either in storytelling, that the MCU movies have had, or in a commercial success, with the exception of Wonder Woman. I thought Wonder Woman was a great movie and was a home run out of the park. Probably really on the caliber of Black Panther when it came out. But other than that, I did like Dawn of Justice, and I did like Justice League. They were okay. They were entertaining, but for comic enthusiasts, they didn't really like it as much, and I can understand why. But if you don't really know a lot of back history, they seem like decent movies to me, and they entertain me. So I'm really rooting for Aquaman. I like Aquaman. This is an example of why I don't really think we have a true local comic shop in my area. There is a store that sells toys, and he started selling comics. But he doesn't carry all the titles. He doesn't even carry Aquaman as a monthly title because he says, no one buys it. So, I consider Aquaman a main character in the DC universe. And the fact that he doesn't carry this title along with a lot of others, he's still, new in business and trying to manage his budget. So, but he doesn't carry Aquaman. I do get Aquaman on a monthly basis, and so I had this issue already. But for $1, I picked it up. I got this issue also at a local comic shop. It's about an hour away for $1. First appearance of the new female Question in 52 week 48. I picked this book up. I'm not even sure why. I have multiple copies of this already. First appearance of her, Fantastic Four, Volume 3, number 11. This did have a little bit of heat when the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 movie came out. I think it's probably a $1 book now, and it's probably about what it's worth. Swords of Sorrow, J. Scott Campbell's cover. I showed the first one, another copy that Jenny Frison had done a variant cover on. I knew I had this cover, but I didn't buy them at the same time, so they weren't together, and I'll put that with it now. Went to another local comic shop that was about an hour and a half away, and they had some $1 books, and so here's some of the books I found. I found Uncanny X-Men 123. It's probably in VF condition. It's a John Byrne interior artwork. He didn't do the cover. Terry Austin did. But anytime I find John Byrne Uncanny X-Men, I usually pick it up if it's in high grade because, his run with Chris Claremont is a highly sought-after collectible book. And even if I have the issue, if I have it in a high grade, they always sell, and they always sell for more than $1. So I picked that up. Marvel Team Up, Spider-Man and Frankenstein Monster, same reason. It was an early bronze issue that is in high grade. There's a couple of spine ticks here, but there are not a lot of comics with Frankenstein Monster in it, so that's why I picked it up, besides the fact that it was in high grade. There's nothing key about that. But so I picked that up. It's probably only worth $1. Actually, I don't know why this is in this pile. I did pick it up for $1. New X-Men 149. Grant Morrison run. It was in my one of the books I needed to fill a run, so I picked that up. This is Uncanny X-Men when they renumbered, I think maybe it started as Astonishing X-Men. Yeah, it was Astonishing X-Men, then changed to New X-Men. Went to another local comic shop. I have a lot of days off, actually, so usually at least one time a week I'll get the clearance from my wife that I can leave town and go comic hunting, and she'll watch the kid and do all the homework and stuff, so it gets me off the hook. And so I go out quite a bit and drive an hour or 2 hours to a comic shop that I might not have been at before. So I went to one. It's about 2 hours away, Southern Ohio. and they had some dollar books. So I went through it and found this. This is the Invincible Iron Man '86, first appearance of Blizzard. It's in decent condition. I didn't have this book already. Really, the main problem, which is this is probably only a good copy, simply because there's tattering of the edge here, and this being an early bronze comic, it was bagged and boarded, but it was brittle, and so when I opened this comic up and to rebag it, and I took the comic out, you could see the pieces of this cover still in the bottom of the bag. And so, I mean, it presents nice in a Mylar. It's not a major key, but again, for $1, I thought I'd pick it up for my personal collection. I don't have a lot of, I mean, I guess I have a fair amount of Iron Man, but it's not my favorite character. Got this one too, same reason. The Invincible Iron Man 95, nothing really key about it, but it was in high grade until I took it out of the bag to rebag it, and this little chunk here fell out. Again, same reason, it was just very brittle. Other than that, the pages and interior were, off-white. Pages were all intact, staples were tight. The back is crisp, but when I took it out and that fell off, I was like, oh, man, what are you going to do? I got this comic here, first appearance of Space Armor, Iron Man 142, Bob Layton. Bob Layton's run on this, his artwork was great. I thought he was one of the probably top 5 artists on Iron Man ever. He made his armor look like real armor versus some of the older artists, if you look at it, But I loved the artwork on that. I had a good friend that was really hot on Iron Man and would always pick up all his books, and then afterwards, he would trade me for all my Iron Man. But then afterward, I started picking them up as a collection for this particular run of Iron Man by Bob Layton. 150. This is in VF. There's 1 and 2 color break spine ticks here. But other than that, it's a pretty crisp copy. Bob Layton again, interior with John Romita Jr. doing the pencils, Layton doing the ink, and Iron Man versus Dr. Doom. This is a great story. This is a great storyline. And this book, sometimes when you go through the Invincible Iron Man, this book is often missing from the run if you go through it. So I picked it up for $1. Picked this book up because it was in pretty high grade. This is the first appearance of the Stealth Armor, and this book can go for a little bit of money. Not an expensive book, but this was in high grade near mint. It's got this photograph in the background of the city, and then there's Iron Man. They had a decent run of Iron Man, so I picked up a few of the books. Picked this book up. This book had some heat initially when the Ant-Man Wasp movie came out. This first appearance of the Ghost, Iron Man 219, Volume 2. It was a $20 book. I'm not sure what it's going for now. This story arc ran through 219, 220, and 221. These are all in near mint condition. 220. I've got this in my personal collection already, and so I picked up another copy for $1. But I thumbed through this again, and I had forgotten that this is Spy Master 2 or 3, and the Ghost are running from Iron Man. And so, one of Ghost's power, he uses technology to become intangible and go through walls. And so as they're running, he gives the Spy Master some of his technology so that he can also become intangible and go through the walls. But they were having the beef in the beginning of this issue. And then they're escaping, and as Spy Master's coming through the wall, Ghost rips off the pack, the technology pack that he had on his chest, and then he solidifies in a wall and he kills him, and it's just gangster. And so he dies in that issue, which but the way he dies is like, ooh, wow, that's just gangster. And then in this issue here, Iron Man captures the Ghost, 221. So I picked that up for $1 a piece. Picked this up, Incredible Hulk 300, not a really big key issue, but Spider-Man's on it, the cover with his black costume. It was in high grade, so I picked that up. Picked this up, I've mentioned this before, these gimmick covers, I call them, by Marvel. I think these are probably in the early 90s, where, you know, this is embossed, some kind of die cast with this foil that's easily damaged. And so when I see, again, these books in high grade, I'll pick them up for $1. This comic here is a representation, I think, of how the industry is just a little out of control. You know, so this is a free comic from 2007. You know, Free Comic Book Day, first Saturday of May. You know, they printed thousands and thousands of these. Shops would buy them for, you know, anywhere between, you know, 10 cents to 25 cents and give them out to customers. Usually the shops, you know, limited to one per customer. And some shops, you know, you can only pick 2 or 3 of the comics they offer on Free Comic Book Day, since they do pay something for them. They get the benefit of having traffic through the store. They sell other issues, and then they may or may not get new comic book readers. But this comic here, a free comic, right? Free comic. Some of the Free Comic Book Day books have some new material in it, and this one introduces a character called Jackpot. And so this comic was going for $15 to $20, a free comic. I just think that's ridiculous. You know, I think it's ridiculous. I paid $1 for it, but you know, I'll play the game. It was in near mint condition, all white cover, pretty crisp, and I paid $1 for a free comic. So, you know, what are you gonna do? I got this comic for nostalgia purposes. Krull #1. It's a movie adaptation. It might be a limited series. I don't remember. I didn't look through it again, but I didn't have this book, but I remember seeing this movie as a kid and playing the arcade game and putting a lot of quarters in it. The movie's terrible, but I thought I'd pick it up for nostalgia purposes. Same for this. You know, I grew up, you know, I was still a fairly young kid in the 80s, so when I see stuff that reminds me of my childhood, even if I have the book, I'll pick it up. So I picked these up because they were in high grade. Shogun Warriors #1, #2, and #3, all in, you know, VF plus condition. I did not have these toys as a child. These were from the late 70s, but a couple of friends of mine had them, and I would play with them, and you know, I always wanted them, but I never got them. But you know, I have some of the comics, and my original ones are beat up, but over the years, if I find a couple that are in high grade, I pick them up. They had a few others, but they weren't continuous, so I only picked up 1, 2, and 3, kind of like the A-Team. And all those were $1. So far, all the books I've shown you have been $1 a piece. Now, I picked up this next book. That's not going to stay. For $1. And when I bought it, I thought it was in near mint condition, you know. This is Avengers 225. It's an anniversary issue of the Avengers. They have this little special drawing foliage on it. And the lighting wasn't the greatest when I bought this comic, but it was in, you know, it looked like it was in high grade. The corners were sharp, right? And the spine was intact. But when I got it home and took it out of the bag and board, I noticed that it was damaged, in that, you know, this is a newsstand copy. So when the collector bought this comic, he put it in a bag and board. And so this was in 1982. And so, as I mentioned before, polybags and non-acid-free backing boards, which are halfbacks and fullbacks, they leak gases into the comic and acid and can damage the comic. And so this book here, you can see that little discoloration at the top going across. Again, this book was published in 1982. You can see that. And so if it was bagged and boarded from 82 until I purchased it in 2018, you're talking 36 years, right? So it's been in a bag and board for 36 years, and probably the same bag and board. And that's what happens with the comic, where you get this discoloration from the back and board. And that's why they have Mylar. So I try to put all my comics in Mylars and fullbacks down. And, if one day my son starts liking comics, then he'll have all his comics preserved appropriately. Mylars and fullbacks are what the Library of Congress uses. So, this is top grade storage supplies, and we'll never have to rebag and board them because of that. So, but I thought I'd show that as an example of what can happen to your comic. Some of my early Silver Age and Gold, I got a few Golden Age comics. I don't really go after them that much because I think the price range is high, and what I can use those dollars for, and getting a different comic is what I'd rather do. But I do put microchamber paper in some of my more valuable comics that are older, because of that newsprint is just not the caliber of paper that they make comics in today. So I get this comic here. This was actually recently showcased as a dollar find on one of the websites. And it's funny, as I got this book, and then next thing you know, they're showing a few of the books I just on this website that I had picked up in dollar bins. But this is Batgirl number 45 by James Jean. I think it's a beautiful cover, and when I see his artwork, he became famous by doing the Fable covers, but he did a run on Batgirl, maybe 8 or 9 issues. That's pretty good, and they're hard to find in the wild. So when I see them, I do pick them up. Got this issue here, Black Panther 51. The movie had been released, and so a lot of the Black Panther titles and appearances are pretty high. This is an early 80s, late 70s issue. It did go for some money around the time of the movie. This is probably a VF minus copy. Other than a few spine ticks, it's in pretty high grade. So I picked that up. They had issue 52, but it was beat up, so I left it behind. And then I got this one, issue 53. The way they used to portray black superheroes was just kind of disgraceful back in the early 70s, late 70s, and early 80s. I mean, Black Panther he just seemed to always be fighting the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, here the Klan is rooting on the Grand Master, Soul Strangler to lynch Black Panther. It's just, I mean, if you read the comics from Luke Cage, and, they're always talking about jive and, dropping a dime. And, I mean, it's just kind of nonsense. And if you look at Black Lightning also, he was in the ghetto. And, I mean, it's just so disgraceful representation of the black population, but that's how it was back then. When I see stuff like this, I pick it up just for also historic reasons and kind of a piece of history, right? So the next comics I'm going to show you, I got at the shop in town. They sell mostly toys, but he's starting to build up a healthy back issue catalog there. where he's probably got about 20 long boxes, if maybe a few more. People do come in and sell them their collections, and so I will peruse through his back issues on a regular basis. Probably 80% of them are $1. He's starting to get older comics, and so he's starting to price them accordingly. He does have a glass case with some other key issues, but these books were $2.99 a piece, and I was missing one or two of these issues from this series within the ongoing series, and I didn't know which one I was missing, so I decided to buy all four, and that is the 10 Nights of the Beast limited series in the series of Batman. 417, first appearance of KGB Beast. 418, 419, and 420. All great covers by Mike Zeck. The last three are direct copies. I actually think I'm missing 418, and I might be missing 420 also, but I'm not sure. I know I have 417, the first appearance, and this is a newsstand edition. And these were all in high grade near mint. So I did pull them out of the bag and examine them at the shop to make sure I wanted them all, even for $3, you know. But you know, I did. They were all in high grade near mint condition. And individually, these books probably go for, you know, probably $3. However, if you look online and you see them as a set, okay, so for the set, I'm paying $12. But online, if you see them for sale on eBay, sold as a set, they go for $40. An easy $40, sometimes even higher. If they're graded, they obviously go for a lot higher. And I really think that, you know, this is easy at 9.6. I don't ever say 9.8 because, you know, a few books I have submitted to CGC where I'm like, I can't believe the grade that it comes back. It's almost like witchcraft sometimes, I think. But again, these are all high grade. I think they're all probably 9.6 or better copies. So for $3, and you know, recently on the ongoing series of Batman, KGB Beast shot Nightwing in the head in issue 55, and then Nightwing came back. He was apparently in a coma or something for a good bit. And then they started kind of a new direction in Nightwing, the ongoing series, in issue 50, where he comes back and he's got a big bullet wound shaped like his logo on his head. I just started picking up Nightwing when they did this, and it's a little bit grittier. Nightwing has kind of disowned himself or disassociated with himself, I guess, from the Batman family. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the comic book. But I've always liked Nightwing, and so with that, I really decided to pick this series up. So that's it for this haul. Trying to keep my hauls under 30 minutes now, and enjoying doing these videos. I think I've got enough now, and I'm going to show my son these videos and see what happens. Thank you all that are watching my videos. I've seen them, and hope everyone has a great weekend. Peace out. Enough said.